The teen Navy SEAL, the William Goines story. Picture this. It's 1955. America is still gasping in the thick smog of segregation. Brown versus Board of Education may have been passed, but change hasn't touched most streets, not in the South, and certainly not in places like Lockland, Ohio, where William Goines grew up. The town pool was drained and filled with rocks rather than let black children swim in it. That wasn't an exaggeration. That was life. William Harvey Goines had been born there in 1936, deep in the heart of this quiet Midwestern hostility. Though Ohio didn't fly Confederate flags, its racism ran cold and institutional. In his own childhood, Goines once swam at a public pool. The next day, the white owner drained it. Not cleaned it, drained it. Because black children had touched the water. That left a mark, he later said. It wasn't just about swimming. It was a brutal public reminder that even the basic pleasures of youth were not meant for him. In Lockland, they didn't need signs to remind you that you were unwanted. They showed it with silence, policy, and humiliation. And still, at just 19 years old, William Goines enlisted in the United States Navy. He hadn't grown up around military brass. He didn't come from a family of decorated officers. What he did have was a vision, sparked by a war movie called The Frogmen, of diving into the deep, silent world of underwater demolition. He wanted to be one of them. What he didn't yet realize was that the men on screen were part of a pre-SEAL era. The Navy SEALs didn't even exist yet. But William Goines, he would be there when they were born. A family legacy of passing pride and pain. William Goines was born into a world where survival often meant shape-shifting. His father, Luther Harvey Goines, was a light-skinned black man who could pass for white, and sometimes did, just to get work. Luther worked in the automobile industry and even co-owned a gas station. But the illusion could only stretch so far. When his white co-workers discovered that he was married to a black woman, they demanded answers. William remembered the confrontation vividly. His father stood tall and replied, "That is no maid, that's my wife. I'm a black man." He was promptly fired. Imagine being a young boy and watching that. The humiliation, the bravery, the consequence. Goines didn't grow up in a world where being black was an asset. He grew up in one where being black got you fired, locked out, or left behind. But his father's bold refusal to deny his truth planted something powerful in young William, a lifelong refusal to back down or shrink himself to fit anyone else's version of what was acceptable. The racial landscape of the 1950s and 60s. In states like Ohio and Virginia, Jim Crow laws may not have always been spelled out on the books, but their consequences were deeply felt. Segregation was enforced not only through institutions, but through social customs, housing policies, and unspoken rules of exclusion. For a young black man entering a nearly all-white combat force, the challenges didn't stop on the battlefield. They followed him to the barracks, the streets, and even to the bar. In a state with a long history of segregation, Mr. Goines at times struggled to even find a place to unwind with his fellow SEALs. On one group excursion to a bar in nearby Norfolk, he was denied entrance until fellow team members threatened to leave. The bar relented and even set him up with free drinks. "Norfolk was really tough back in those days," he later said. "I helped integrate a lot of places, not on purpose." He didn't ask to be a civil rights pioneer, but his very existence in white-dominated spaces made him one. Just showing up, just refusing to vanish, became its own quiet revolution. The warning, don't do it, you'll end up a steward. Before he ever touched the water, Goines was warned. A fellow black serviceman told him not to pursue underwater demolition training. "Don't go into that," the man said. "They'll put you in as a steward." That warning wasn't unfounded. In the newly integrated Navy of the 1950s, black sailors were overwhelmingly funneled into steward roles, jobs that involved cooking, cleaning, and serving white officers. These positions were holdovers from segregation-era policies that kept black servicemen in subordinate roles, regardless of their skills, intelligence, or potential. Becoming a steward meant being assigned to officers' quarters, preparing meals, shining shoes, and making beds. It wasn't about combat or command. It was domestic labor in uniform. And for decades, it was the only path the military would offer black men who enlisted. But William Goines refused to accept that fate. He took the risk. He trained anyway. And he proved them all wrong. Segregated ranks, unbroken will. By the time Goines entered the Navy, only a sliver of black men had broken into advanced operational tracks. Goines wasn't just pushing against the odds. He was forcing open a door that had long been sealed shut. He applied for the Navy's elite underwater demolition training, a precursor to what would become the SEALs. The training took place in Malta, where 85 men started the course. Just 14 graduated. William was one of them, the only black man. Not just in his class, but for years. He later revealed that not all the discrimination came from his peers. At one point, a commanding officer tried to get him reassigned to steward duty solely because of the color of his skin. It took another officer standing up on Goines' behalf to stop the attempt. That was the reality. At any moment, even brilliance could be erased with the stroke of racism. Birth of the SEALs, and Goines is right there. In 1962, President John F. Kennedy formally created the Navy SEALs as a new elite fighting force, specializing in unconventional warfare, counterinsurgency, and special reconnaissance. SEAL Team 1 and SEAL Team 2 were formed on opposite U.S. coasts. William Goines was one of the original 40 men selected for SEAL Team 2. Once again, he was the only black man, and once again he proved why he belonged. While the U.S. Navy officially recognizes another man, Fred "Tiz" Morrison, a fellow graduate of the underwater demolition teams, as the first black sailor to serve in that specific role, Morrison retired in 1962 before the SEALs were formally activated. According to military sources and task and purpose, it was Goines, not Morrison, who became the first African American to serve as an operational Navy SEAL once the teams went into action. In other words, Morrison broke a door open, but Goines walked all the way through it and made history in real time. The hidden cost: chemical testing and experimentation. Years later, Goines would reveal a lesser-known part of his military experience, being used as a human test subject. They said we were being tested to see what effect these gases would have on black skins, Goines recalled. You had no choice. You did not know where you were going. They didn't tell you anything. This was part of a long and shameful legacy of medical and chemical testing on black soldiers, experiments carried out under the guise of national defense, but steeped in racial exploitation. While Goines fought for his country treated his body like a petri dish. And still he stayed. Still he rose. Unlike his white counterparts, William Goines didn't just carry a weapon into combat. He carried the burden of representation. In elite spaces, there's often only room for one, and that one must be flawless. No mistakes, no vulnerability, no missteps. One misfire from Goines could have jeopardized the future of every other black man dreaming of becoming a SEAL. And he knew that. That pressure was a constant shadow over his career. Still, he excelled. Goines had served multiple tours in Vietnam as well, after retiring in 1987 as a Master Chief Petty Officer, one of the Navy's highest enlisted ranks. Goines continued serving his community. He became the chief of police for Portsmouth Public Schools in Virginia and spent decades mentoring young men, particularly those of color, to consider joining the Navy SEALs. It was never just about him. Goines had become the thing he never saw growing up, a symbol that black boys could grow up to be warriors, leaders, legends. In 2023, he was awarded the Navy Memorial's Lone Sailor Award, a rare honor for those who've lived a life of exceptional service in and out of uniform. He passed away on June 10, 2024, at age 87 of a heart attack in Norfolk, Virginia. William Goines didn't ask to be first. He didn't charge into the Navy with dreams of making history. He simply wanted to serve. But history found him. He was the only black man in his Frogman training class, the only black original member of SEAL Team 2, the first African-American Navy SEAL. A man tested not only in combat, but by a country that tried repeatedly to erase him. But William Goines couldn't be erased. His father's refusal to deny his identity, his family legacy of freedom fighters and Civil War Union soldiers, his own relentless determination, all converged to forge a man who wasn't just the blueprint, he was the battle-tested proof that courage knows no color. And it all started at just 19 years old. Here is the late William Goines, featured in an interview about his groundbreaking experience from a resurfaced news clip.
To a ship.
Retired Navy Master Chief Bill Goines is on a new mission, encouraging students of color to consider becoming Navy SEALs.
The training is excellent. It takes about a year.
The 82-year-old nearly missed his shot of joining the elite force because of an accident in his high school woodworking class.
When I went to get examined, and the guy noticed that part of my finger was missing. He said, "That's your trigger finger." I said, "No, I'm left-handed."
Were you?
Not really. I wasn't 100% left-handed.
That obstacle among the many Goines faced in becoming the first African-American Navy SEAL. Over his 32-year career, Goines carried out classified missions all over the world, including 3 combat tours in Vietnam. His favorite part of the job, free-fall parachuting.
I was dumb and young then. I couldn't wait to get back up and do it again.
What's it feel like to be a trailblazer?
It was way into my career before I realized I was the first African-American Navy SEAL.
Few people of color have followed him. Of the more than 3,000 active duty Navy SEALs, just over 1% are African-American. Nearly 9% are Hispanic.
Having a diverse group with different ways of thinking helps us adjust to the ever-changing battlefield.
But Goines did inspire the first black officer to command a SEAL team, his identity shielded for security reasons.
He allowed me to focus on training as opposed to focusing on being the first.
What reason would you have to?
Bill Goines, long retired but still serving.
It's like, if he can do it, anybody can do it.
But massive arms isn't bad.
A pioneering Navy SEAL, passing on an enduring legacy. Jeff Bennett, NBC News, Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Mr. Goines, for your service. Scope News tells the truth. Here are the facts. This video essay draws from the New York Times obituary, June 2024, the Cincinnati Herald, July 2024, IBW21.org's investigation into chemical testing on black servicemen, and historical military coverage by Task and Purpose regarding Fred "Tiz" Morrison's role. Quotes and facts were also sourced from William Goines' own recorded interviews and official award recognitions. The story presented here honors both historical record and the lived experience of a man who changed what was possible for generations of black service members to serve. Legal disclaimer: this content is intended for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised. While every effort has been made to accurately represent historical facts and first-hand testimonies, some content may include interpretations, reconstructed events, or summaries of complex historical records. Scope News does not claim ownership of any original military records, photographs, or external reporting sources referenced. All third-party quotes and historical materials are credited to their original sources when known. This report does not serve as a substitute for official military history or legal documentation.